My name is Sarah. I'm 34 years old, and everyone thinks I have the perfect life. They see my Instagram posts of fresh flowers on marble countertops, my children's artwork displayed in expensive frames, my husband David kissing my cheek, in front of our renovated Victorian home. What they don't see is the pill bottle hidden behind the cleaning supplies. The nights I spend staring at the ceiling while David sleeps peacefully beside me, or the way I grip the kitchen counter until my knuckles turn white when someone asks how I'm doing. The pain started 3 years ago, a dull ache in my lower back that the doctors dismissed as stress. Stress from what, I wondered. My life was perfect, wasn't it? I had everything I'd ever dreamed of: a successful husband, two beautiful children, a home that could grace the cover of Better Homes and Gardens. But the pain persisted, spreading through my body like wildfire, turning simple tasks into monumental challenges. I learned to smile through it, to hide the grimaces behind practiced expressions of contentment. The first prescription was supposed to be temporary, just until the inflammation went down. The doctor, a kind woman with tired eyes, handed me the bottle like it was a lifeline. Take 2 every 6 hours as needed, she said. I started with 1. Within a month, I needed 3 too. Feel normal. Within 6 months, normal became a distant memory, and the pills became my secret companion. My invisible crutch in this picture-perfect life that was slowly suffocating me. The morning routine became a carefully choreographed performance. Wake. Up at 6:30, take 2 pills with my coffee before anyone else stirred. By the time Emma and Jake bounded into the kitchen for breakfast, I was the mother they expected, patient, nurturing, present. I packed their lunches with love notes tucked inside, kissed their foreheads goodbye, and waved from the doorway as David drove them to school. The house fell silent then, and the mask could slip just a little. I'd lean against the door, feeling the familiar ache creep back into my bones, reaching for the bottle that lived in my purse now, always within reach. The pain had evolved, becoming something more than physical. It was emotional, psychological, a constant reminder that my body was betraying me, even as my life appeared flawless. Friends would visit and marvel at my organized pantry, my spotless floors, my ability to host dinner parties that looked effortless. They didn't know about the pills I took beforehand, the way I planned every movement to minimize the stabbing sensations in my joints. The bottles multiplied quietly, 1 in the kitchen, 1 in my purse, 1 in the bathroom, 1 in my car. I told myself it was just being prepared, just managing my condition responsibly. David noticed my increased doctor visits, but attributed them to routine checkups, preventive care. On taking charge of my health, I'd tell him, and he'd smile proudly at his responsible wife. The lies came so easily now, woven seamlessly into the fabric of our daily conversations. The first time I ran out early, panic seized me like ice water in my veins. I'd miscalculated, taken 1 too many during Emma's school play when sitting in those hard auditorium chairs became unbearable. 3 days stretched ahead before my next refill, 3 days that felt like an eternity. I called the doctor's office, voice carefully controlled, explaining that I'd dropped the bottle and several pills had scattered down the drain. The nurse's skeptical tone made my cheeks burn with shame, but she approved an early refill this once. Standing in the pharmacy, watching the familiar orange bottle slide across the counter, I felt both relief and something darker, the recognition that this had become something I couldn't simply stop. The pills weren't just managing pain anymore. They were managing my existence, my ability to be the wife and mother my family needed. Without them, I was irritable, anxious, my skin crawling with an indefinable restlessness. With them, I could fold laundry without wincing, attend parent-teacher conferences without shifting constantly in my chair, make love to my husband without counting down the minutes until it was over. The math seemed simple. Pills equaled functionality, functionality equaled happiness for everyone. But late at night, when the house was quiet and the pills were wearing off, I'd stare at my reflection in the bathroom mirror and wonder who this woman was. This perfectly put together stranger who needed chemicals to feel human. My mother called. Every Sunday, her voice bright with pride as she bragged to her friends about her successful daughter. If only she knew that her successful daughter was Googling symptoms of withdrawal, clearing her browser history afterward like a teenager hiding something shameful. Asterisk doctor shopping became an art form it perfected without conscious intention. When Dr. Martinez began asking too many questions about my pain levels, I developed mysterious issues that required specialists. A back specialist for my herniated disc, a rheumatologist for possible fibromyalgia, a pain management clinic for my chronic condition. Each doctor saw only their piece of my puzzle, none aware of the complete picture I was painting across multiple medical practices. I became fluent in medical terminology, able to describe symptoms with convincing specificity. The pain was real, but it had become secondary to the fear of being without my safety net. I kept a detailed calendar of refill dates, noting which doctors were more generous with quantities, which ones asked fewer questions. The drive to different pharmacies became routine, one week at CVS, the next at Walgreens, sometimes venturing to the independent pharmacy across town where the elderly pharmacist barely looked up from his counting. David found the receipts once, multiple pharmacy bags in my car. I explained about price shopping, about using insurance benefits efficiently. He kissed my forehead and called me practical, his thrifty wife saving money on healthcare. The guilt was becoming heavier than the pain ever was. When Emma skinned her knee and came running to me for comfort, I had to wait for my afternoon dose to kick in before I could properly soothe her, before I could be the nurturing mother she deserved. When Jake needed help with homework, I'd glance at the clock, calculating how long until I could take my next pill without raising suspicion. My life was being measured in 4-hour intervals. Each day, a carefully planned sequence of medication times disguised as normal activities. The turning point came on a Tuesday that started like any other. Emma had a fever, Jake had forgotten his science project, and David was traveling for work. I took my morning pills as usual, but the stress of managing everything alone made the pain flare unexpectedly. By noon, I was reaching for an extra pill, then another. The afternoon blurred at the edges, my movements feeling disconnected from my intentions. I picked up the kids from school in what felt like a dream state, their voices seeming to come from underwater. Emma looked at me strangely when I gave her cereal for dinner, her fever forgotten in my pharmaceutical haze. It wasn't until I woke, up on the couch at 11 p.m., both children asleep in front of the television, that the full weight of what was happening crashed over me. I had lost hours, lost time with my babies, lost pieces of myself that no amount of pills could give back. That night, I flushed half a bottle down the toilet in a moment of clarity and terror. But by morning, withdrawal anxiety was clawing at my chest, and I was calling Dr. Peterson's emergency line, describing phantom pain that felt less real than my need for the pills. The cycle had become its own entity, feeding on my love for my family, convincing me that I needed the medication to be the mother and wife they deserved. I started researching rehab facilities online, but every program required time away from home, explanations I wasn't ready to give. How do you tell your husband that his perfect wife is slowly dissolving from the inside out? How do you explain to your children why mommy needs to go away to get better when they don't even know she's sick? The isolation was perhaps the cruelest part of this invisible prison I constructed. At school functions, I'd watch other mothers laugh freely, their bodies moving without the careful calculation mine required. During book club meetings, I'd participate in discussions about fictional characters' struggles while hiding my own. Very real battle behind a facade of wine and witty commentary. The pills had created a glass wall between me and everyone I loved, allowing me to see them clearly while remaining fundamentally unreachable. My sister called one evening, her voice excited as she planned our annual family vacation. The thought of being away from my carefully controlled environment, my hidden stashes, my predictable pharmacy routine, filled me with panic disguised as scheduling conflicts. I invented work obligations, children's commitments, anything to avoid the vulnerability of being exposed outside my managed reality. David suggested a weekend getaway for our anniversary, just the two of us. The romantic gesture that should have filled me with joy instead triggered anxiety about pill counts and timing. I packed my weekend bag like a military operation, calculating exact dosages, bringing extras hidden in vitamin bottles. Even our most intimate moments were filtered through my chemical dependency, my responses measured not by love or desire, but by the timing of my last dose. The spontaneity that had once characterized our relationship was replaced by my need for pharmaceutical predictability. He noticed my changes but attributed them to stress, to the natural evolution of marriage and parenthood. When he suggested I seemed distant lately, I manufactured explanations about work pressure and family obligations, deflecting his concern. With manufactured busyness that felt more real than my actual emotions, the children became unwitting witnesses to my decline, their innocent observations cutting deeper than any doctor's warnings. Jake asked why I took so many vitamins, his curious 8-year-old mind cataloging the frequency of my pill taking. Emma, more perceptive at 10, began watching me with worried eyes when she thought I wasn't looking. Their bedtime stories became rushed affairs when I miscalculated timing, my patience evaporating as withdrawal anxiety crept in. I started setting phone alarms disguised as appointment reminders, grateful when the buzzing gave me permission to excuse myself from my ritualistic relief. The medicine cabinet became a shrine to my secret life, organized with the precision of a pharmacy. I knew exactly how many pills were in each bottle, could calculate down to the hour when I'd need refills. This mathematical precision felt like control, but it was the illusion of management in a life spiraling beyond recognition. My photography hobby, once a source of joy, became another tool for deception. I'd take breaks from family activities to capture the perfect shot, stepping away long enough to take my medication without observation. The beautiful family photos I created during this period would later serve as evidence of time lost, moments when I was physically present but emotionally anesthetized. David found me crying in the bathroom one evening, overwhelmed by guilt and pharmaceutical fog. I blamed hormones, stress, the universal struggles of motherhood. He held me gently, promising things would get better, unknowingly comforting the very person whose secret was slowly destroying our family's foundation. His faith in my strength felt like another weight to carry, another expectation. I was failing to meet while appearing to excel at everything. The wake-up call arrived in the form of Emma's school project about family heroes. She chose me writing, in her careful cursive, about how I took care of everyone, how I was always strong and never complained. Reading her words felt like swallowing glass, each innocent observation a reminder of the lie I was living. She presented her project to the class while I sat in the audience, fighting tears that had nothing to do with pride and everything to do with shame. That afternoon, I called an addiction helpline from my car in the school parking lot, watching other parents collect their children while I spoke in whispers about my secret life. The counselor's gentle questions stripped away my rationalizations, forcing me to confront the reality I'd been avoiding. This wasn't pain management anymore. This was dependency disguised as medical necessity. The path forward seemed impossible. How do you dismantle a life built around a lie without destroying everything you were trying to protect? That evening, I found David in his study, laptop open to work projects that suddenly seemed trivial compared to the conversation we needed to have. I sat across from him, the words catching in my throat like physical obstacles. The perfect home we'd built together was constructed on the foundation of my deception, and I was about to bring it all crashing down. I started with the real pain that had initiated this journey. Then the pills, the escalation, the web of lies that had become more complex than the original problem. His face transformed as understanding dawned, confusion giving way to hurt, then anger, then something worse, disappointment. The silence that followed my confession felt infinite, filled with the sound of trust cracking like ice under pressure. David's reaction surprised me with its complexity. After the initial shock, he became methodical, practical, asking questions about treatment options and timeline for recovery. His business mind approached my addiction like a problem to be solved, which felt both comforting and somehow inadequate for the emotional devastation I'd caused. We agreed to tell the children that mommy was sick and needed special medicine to get better, a version of truth that protected their innocence while acknowledging reality. The night before I entered outpatient treatment, I stood in Emma's doorway, watching her sleep, memorizing the peaceful expression I'd missed so many times while lost in my pharmaceutical haze. Jake had left a drawing on my nightstand, our family holding hands in front of our house, everyone smiling. The guilt threatened to crush me, but underneath it was something I hadn't felt in years, hope. The treatment center was nothing like I'd imagined, filled with people who looked exactly like me, soccer moms and business executives, teachers and nurses, all of us united by the common thread of secret struggle. Group therapy sessions revealed the universality of our experiences, the similar stories of good intentions gone wrong, medical needs becoming psychological crutches. Dr. Williams, my addiction counselor, helped me understand that my love for my family had both created the problem and could be part of the solution. I'd started taking pills to be a better mother and wife. Now I needed to stop taking them for the same reason. The physical withdrawal was manageable with medical supervision, but the emotional withdrawal from my chemical security blanket felt like learning to walk again. Simple tasks required new strategies, new ways of coping with discomfort that didn't involve medication. Asterisk recovery revealed layers of myself I'd forgotten existed. Without the pharmaceutical filter, emotions felt overwhelming at first, too bright, and intense after years of chemical dampening. I rediscovered the pleasure of natural energy, the satisfaction of accomplishment without chemical assistance, the authentic connection with my children that had been missing for so long. Emma noticed the change first, commenting that my hugs felt different, more present. Jake began seeking me out for conversations about school and friends, sensing an availability that had been absent. David and I started couples counseling, working through the trust issues my deception had created while rebuilding our relationship on a foundation of honesty. The most difficult part was forgiving myself for the time lost, the moments I'd missed while managing my secret life. But my counselor helped me understand that guilt could become another addiction, another way of avoiding the present moment, where healing was actually possible. I became involved with other parents in recovery, creating a support network that understood the unique challenges of hiding addiction behind the facade of perfect parenthood. We met in coffee shops and parks, sharing strategies for managing stress without medication, celebrating small victories like getting through a difficult day without pills. My photography hobby returned, but now I was capturing genuine moments instead of manufacturing them. The pictures from this period show a family in transition, sometimes messy, often imperfect, but undeniably real. David supported my recovery. journey, even when it meant confronting uncomfortable truths about our marriage, about how we both contributed to an environment where hiding problems felt safer than addressing them. The house remained beautiful, but it no longer felt like a museum of perfection where authentic emotion wasn't allowed. 2 years later, I wake up each morning without reaching for a pill bottle, a small miracle that never loses its significance. The pain still exists sometimes, but I've learned to distinguish between physical discomfort and emotional anxiety, addressing each with appropriate tools rather than universal chemical suppression. Emma is 12 now, more perceptive than ever, and sometimes asks direct questions about my recovery that I answer with age-appropriate honesty. Jake, 10, seems to have inherited my tendency toward anxiety, but now I can model healthy coping strategies instead of hiding behind pharmaceutical solutions. Our family conversations include discussions about mental health, addiction, and the importance of asking for help when struggling. David and I have a stronger marriage than we did before my addiction, built on brutal honesty rather than convenient fiction. We've learned to have difficult conversations before problems become unmanageable secrets. The house still looks beautiful in photographs, but now the beauty comes from genuine happiness rather than carefully constructed appearances. I volunteer at the treatment center where I got help, sharing my story with other parents who are struggling with the same invisible battle the first fought. There's power in breaking the silence, in revealing that perfect homes can hide imperfect pain, that healing requires acknowledging the mess beneath the surface. My children are learning that strength isn't about never falling down. It's about getting up and asking for help when you need it. The invisible pain that once controlled my life is still part of my story, but it's no longer the narrator. I am writing the ending now, one honest day at a time, in a home where perfection has been replaced by something infinitely more valuable: truth, recovery, and the courage to be authentically, messily, beautifully human.